Hello, everybody. Been a while, huh? I don't know if I remember how to do this, but let's try it anyway. What's up? We're going to be havering today a little bit about the Stage 4 playoff stage of the Road to Vegas that happened last weekend. We had EU playing on Saturday and NA playing on Sunday. Essentially, it was a 16-team. I think it was intended to be a 16-team bracket. I can't even remember if it was in the end. I think it was less teams than that. But anyway, it was a double elimination bracket with the top 3 teams from each region advancing to the next stage, which is a LAN in Alpharetta, Georgia, where the game is produced. I feel like this is the first time we got to watch what I would describe as really serious, really competitive Smite 2 gameplay. I think it was a really good watch, actually. I really enjoyed the 2 streams I did Saturday and Sunday watching these games. I think there was a lot of excitement. There were a few upsets, which we'll get on to. The meta was pretty good to watch. And yeah, I just think it feels like we're going in a good direction. So if you haven't checked out Smite Comp up to now, or if you have checked it out and opted to not watch a little bit more, I would say it might be a good time to jump back in. Maybe checking out some of these matches on Smite VOD or something and seeing what you think. But I think it was much, much better than what's come before. Anyway, EU came first. We'll start off with what happened on Saturday. In the winners bracket, we had... I'll put the teams, like the teams of note down below with their rosters, just in case you want to refer to that while you're watching instead of watching my ugly mug. But yeah, in the winners bracket semis, we had Team Risk versus Scorps, which is Team Risk is StreakUp, Genetics, Theakz, LASBRA, and Variety, Scorps, iDavy, Predss, Gunterr, Rapio, and Connah. That was a fairly definitive 2-0 for Team Risk. And then we had Mockingbird, which is Spudio, Calvin, Hawk, Heroxz, and Duduin, playing against the team that upset the previous week, which is Bill's Goons, Krakito, Duduin, April, and Clino. They had previously defeated Giovanni, Giorgio in the previous week. Both these sets were fairly convincing 2-0s for the favorites, which were Mockingbird and Team Risk, and so those teams go into the winners bracket final and advance to LAN. There wasn't anything too interesting. We got to get a first kind of look at the meta. We saw some proxies, which we hadn't really seen too much up to now. I think the first time I saw proxies was OCE teams doing it, actually, with Ra2. So fairly recent, but it was one of the first times I watched an OCE game on Smite game. So they were definitely trailing a blaze there. Blazing a trail, I think, is what I'm looking for. But yeah, the proxy stuff looks interesting, looks viable, looks like it doesn't need to be fixed via let's just say, ugly Invader's Curse type things. Hopefully it stays in. I find that kind of stuff interesting. GG and Giovanni, Giorgio, which is the VaporishCoast, Cozyx, Dardez, Adapte, Nika team, and Smokebreak, Echrome, Silence, Sep, Dzoni, and Benko had made it through their losers bracket first round matches that they were, obviously favorites in, and then we got on to the sort of spicy ones. We had Scorps versus Giovanni, Giorgio. So again, this is like the Davy Predss team versus the Nika team, and Giovanni, Giorgio scraped through this. We got to see this on stream. They didn't look great. Neither team looked particularly great, to be honest. I would say that neither team looked like they were close to the level of Team Risk, and probably not even close to the level of Mockingbird. I think both those teams looked like they understood the meta better and were playing better individually. But GG do eventually scrape through 2-1, and they get the prize of playing against Smokebreak in the losers bracket final for the final LAN spot. And they got pretty resoundingly crushed. Adapting made one of the games look kind of close by stealing a load of objectives with Thanatos. I think he stole a fire and maybe a Gold Fury as well with scythes. But that was the only... They were hanging on by their fingernails with those stolen objectives. Without them, they would have been absolutely demolished. And even with them, they were pretty destroyed. And the Smokebreak roster, just to reiterate, is Chrome, Silence, Sap, Dzoni, and Benko. I think from that team composition, you'd expect Dzoni, Benko, Echrome to be going kind of crazy and dominating, 3 of the most individually skilled players we have in EU, I would say. But actually, for me, it was Sap who looked really, really, really good in these games that we got to see. He was playing things like Anubis, and I think he played Anubis and Ran these games. Looked really, really dominant, and he actually said after the games that he's managed to secure a visa for the first time to go to LAN, so I'm excited to see this team go to LAN and excited to see what Sap can do. He is Romanian, in case you didn't know, so they can't just get an ESTA easily. He had to like travel, I think, to Bucharest and go and do an actual face-to-face interview and be like, hello, I want to play video games in America, and got through it and got his visa, so that's good. But yeah, I think he was the best. For me, I think he was the best looking mid laner in EU over this weekend, so excited to see more of him. In terms of what went wrong for Giovanni, Giorgio, you know, this is a powerhouse team. 3 of the current world champions and adapting, considered the best jungler to ever do it. Cozyx, up and coming support player, looked really strong in the previous couple years. And to be frank, I think they just didn't play the game enough for the most part. I don't think you saw much of Dardez adapting or Cozyx playing the game. I think they weren't enjoying playing the game when they did. And I think that it's a new game, it's a new team. They got sort of a shock defeat last week against Bill's Goons. Nothing much changed, I don't think, between those. I don't want to dress it up and be like, oh, they got unlucky. I just don't think they were motivated enough. Which I understand, if you're not enjoying a game, it's hard to get on and play. I also think the meta probably didn't really suit them. It was a bit of a, for me, I think that tank jungle was the best way to play with 3 Sunders. And it doesn't suit adapting at all. You know, he played Loki and Thanatos, I think it was, but in like other players like your LASBRAs and things like that were able to play things like Odin and Fenrir and Chak and play that bruiser style in the jungle, which I think was better for the meta. I don't think adapting's ever really looked good in any kind of bruiser or tank jungle meta. But anyway, GG fall down. They don't make it to LAN. And it will be Smoke Break, Mockingbird, and Team Risk representing EU. And then NA, words are hard. NA, again, we got the biggest surprise is the best team, the most star-powered team go out. They were in the winners bracket, so there was no for GG. There was a bit of writing on the wall, given they lost to Bill's Goons the previous week. Bill's Goons, by the way, shout out to them, great name. Also, some cool meta stuff they did. They played like Amaterasu mid with Hades solo, which I thought was really cool. I really liked the way that they played. But anyway, in NA, Food Drive for Globe versus Cowabunga in the winners bracket. Food Drive for Globe ended up taking down Cowabunga 2-1. I don't think we'd seen Cowabunga lose a single game so far off the top of my head. They certainly hadn't lost a set in these Road to Vegas matches. I don't think that Cowabunga looked outclassed necessarily individually. I think they played fine, but Food Drive sort of kept them off balance with some odd picks. Shout out Tegvir. And outcalled them late game, I would say. They were just a bit calmer in the late game. They took opportunities where they were given them, and they managed to squeak out a 2-1 win. You know, this wasn't like Cow. I feel like with GG in that 2-0 loss they went through, that was much more of a pasting. I feel like Cowabunga still looked good, maybe a little bit shaken in terms of late game calling, which might have foreshadowed some future mistakes. And I would say that the other sort of surprise in the winners bracket is just how much better Team Name with 5Ms looked than Scrumptious. This was a 2-0. It wasn't close. Sorry, again, the teams will be down below, but Team Name but with 5Ms is Cyclone, PBM, Benny Q, Scream, Cherry. Food Drive for Globe is Tegvir, Happen, Globe, Valo, and Karmic. Cowabunga, Hardcore, Aurora, Paul, Panatom, and Sot. And Scrumptious is Zapman, Rongyu, Shinto, Nog, and Haddock. So that was the teams that were in the winners bracket. Food Drive for Globe and Team Name but with 5Ms march on to LAN. Cowabunga and Scrumptious fall down into the losers bracket. And this is where it got pretty spicy, I would say. Borscht versus Cowabunga. A big matchup. We've just heard who Cowabunga were, but Borscht is Pegon, ADC, Awesome Jake support, Baskin mid, Rack Milk, Jungle, and Final Case solo. You might have seen this team previously with a slightly different roster with Panda Cat in it, but Panda Cat decided he didn't want to play, so they moved some things around. Pagon goes to ADC, Baskin goes to mid, Final K goes to solo, and Jake comes in the support role. So they've shifted 3 players' roles, brought in a new player, and yeah, it looked absolutely fantastic. I think a big part of how they ended up taking down Cowabunga 2-1. I think a big part of how they did it was drafts. In terms of the front line, I think Final K and Jake had landed on perhaps the best meta of anyone. Final K playing a lot of Baron, Jake playing a lot of Umoja. They looked absolutely dominant on those picks. For some reason, Final K got denied Baron in game 2, but then in game 3 was given it again and continued to absolutely crush. Again, similar to what I said about Smoke Break, you might expect this team to be dominant due to Pagon and Baskin, two of the most impressive individually skilled 80s, carries. Pagon I actually don't think looked very good at ADC so far, but we'll see if he adjusts going forward. But I would say this was heavily Jake and Final K frontline diff. Cowabunga looked low on confidence, I think. Maybe they weren't used to losing, not used to being in this position, and ended up falling down. I would say if you were to watch a game back, game 1 of this set was an absolute banger, really great to watch. Game 3, unfortunately, has no game audio, so it's a bit lame. But game 1 was an absolute banger. Scrumptious, as we mentioned, went down to the losers bracket too. They took down a team called Kitty Party, who I don't even remember. You know what? We'll check. We'll give Kitty Party their shout outs, shall we? Kitty Party, which was... Where the heck are they? They're called Basket of Ekins. Is it that team? Is that what is that who they are? I don't know. Is it Sam the Dude's team? We didn't see it either way. And they're not called that on the sheet of team names I have. So unlucky. Sorry, Basket of sorry, whatever they're called, Party Kitty something. Anyway, they lost. Losers. To Scrumptious off stream, and then Scrumptious made it onto the losers bracket final where they would go up against Borscht. And I would say they looked again pretty outclassed. Jake and Final K were able to get Umoja and Baron in game 1, which they shouldn't have been able to. And then in game 2, Scrumptious banned the Umoja, so Baron was let through, but then they didn't top pick it. They top picked Anubis instead, which was something played by Baskin in game 1, but I just don't get that. Maybe they just weren't. Maybe I think everybody kind of undervalued the Baron apart from Final K. And then Jake, even when he got his Umoja taken away from him, which he was crushing on, I think he was playing Sobek and he was 4-0 through the sort of early mid-game period of the game. He was just crushing. And again, their meta understanding was better, their frontline was better, and that's all they needed, I think. It was, yeah, it was interesting. So, in terms of the teams that are going to LAN, let me just recap. You've got Team Risk, in EU, you've got Team Risk, StreakUp, Genetics, Theakz, LASBRA, Variety. This is the #1 seed, and the #1 team in terms of the eye test in EU. Mockingbird, Spudio, Calvin, Hawk, Heroxz, and Duduin. They'll be 2nd seed. Then Echrome, Silence, Sap, Dzoni, and Benko for Smoke Break. They will be 3rd seed. And in NA, team name but with 5 N's. They're 1st seed. Cyclone Spin, PBM, Benny Q, Scream, and Cheerio. Food Drive for Globe are 2nd seed. Tegvir, Happen, Globe, Valo, and Karmic. And Borscht are 3rd seed. Pagon, Awesome Jake, Fourway, Baskin, Rat Milk, and Fine OK. We'll also have 2 LAM teams coming to LAN as well. That LAN's going to be December 12th to 15th. And the top 6 of the 8 teams there will go to Vegas and play for that massive prize pool there. What is it, 200K or something? The 2 LATAM teams are Los Lille and Malibu. Don't really know much about them. I looked at the teams at some point. I'll put the teams down below. But I think I recognize one player on Malibu. As far as I go in terms of my knowledge of the LATAM scene these days. Top seeded teams, which are team name both 5Ms and Risk, will draft their opponent's group on Monday, this Monday coming, I believe. And yeah, that'll be 2 groups of 4. I would expect, we'll see. I don't know if teams will deliberately put the 2 NA teams in the other, like I don't know if, for example, team name will deliberately put the 2 other NA teams in the other group and Risk will deliberately put the 2 other EU teams in their group. I would say that Risk will probably want to avoid Smoke Break. Team name will probably want to avoid Borscht, but we'll see. We'll see where we go from there. Who knows? I am in a position now where I got a lot of respect for Food Drive for Globe and for for Mockingbird in terms of their team play, but I think the third seeds are a little scarier than the second seeds. Yeah, in terms of the meta, I guess a brief talk about the meta. I think in EU in particular, I really liked this focus on having triple Sunder and playing a bruiser in the jungle. And so if you pick a bruiser in the jungle, you don't desperately need another relic. So you don't desperately need a beads, an Aegis, a blink, or whatever to make sure you can stay alive. So you can pick up that Sunder instead and keep the pressure out. I think that frontliners want to be building Glad Shield and Talisman of Purification pretty much every game. Those two items are fantastic, and gods who take advantage of them are good. I also liked the, what's the item called? Abyssal Stone or whatever, the one where you turn into a pig on support. That's kind of cracked. I love that item. That's so cool. I think Calvin in EU made the best use of it on Ymir. He looked like really, really impressive, just like turning into a pig, going forward, getting a wall, getting a freeze. It was great to see. I think that item is really fun, and that's one of the things that I think the active item at the moment in Smite 2 that shows the potential of the system, which is cool. Frontliner picks, I would say, like Umoja, Baron, Sobek, Odin, Ymir were the ones you were looking at as being really strong. Chak maybe as well on the outside of that. ADC, we saw a lot of Jingwei and CERN. A little bit of Zeus, which was cool. We might see more of that. And then I think jungle and mid were a bit more player specific. I don't think there were gods that looked so dominant in those roles as elsewhere. Like we saw some Loki do well, we saw some Odin do well in the jungle. We saw Thanatos do fairly well in the jungle. And then in mid, yeah, it was a lot of things. We saw some Hecate just Hecate's quietly doing their work. We saw some very strong Morrigan gameplay, I think from Baskin in particular. Morrigan, maybe the one to look out for there, as long as you don't run into any bugs. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to talk about here. I had a good screed of notes that I feel like I've got through. But I'm excited to see some more competitive Smite at LAN next weekend. So looking forward to checking that out, and then looking forward to Vegas in January. It's the 17th and 19th, something like that. Okay, I've havered pretty hard. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too bad just having my face up the whole time rather than looking at anything. But there's not much in terms of articles and stuff released yet to talk about this stuff. So I figured I'd just go through my thoughts, my opinions. Also, who was it who asked for it? I gotta check. Shout out to J Melandizi, who requested that I make this video yesterday. I didn't do it yesterday, but I have done it today, and it's all for you, J Melandizi. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you're having a great weekend, and I'll see you next time, maybe.